Good evening, guys, and welcome to Jaris's Corner on Tactical Devils and Mufc RealistTV. Oh, my phone is beeping. Always the bloopers when we're going live. Sorry about that. Tonight's show is a special show on Jaris's Corner, and we always try to find interesting guests and interesting topics to talk about, because everything is mainstream, and I feel everybody's repeating themselves on YouTube especially. But now we have made a big scoop. We have a special guest tonight. He's a former head of PGMOL, former Premier League referee, Mr. Kieth Hackett. And tonight, my partner in crime, Stu Woolley, will interview him. He will do the main talking, and me and Mick will be here and contribute when we can. So I will let my guests speak first. So good to see you, Kieth. How are you doing?
I'm delighted to be on the show. I'm keeping very well, getting old, but still very heavily invested in football. I'm a fan. I love the game. I'm president of a local grassroots club. So I've continually throughout my career, even when I was refereeing, I might have an international game on the Wednesday, but on the Saturday or Sunday refereeing two pub teams. So I've always had that contact with grassroots football. So I'm president of a local club. We have 30 teams, all ages. And I'm also president of the Northern Counties East League, which is about step 5, step 6 in the English league, semi-pro in that sense. They don't earn a lot of money, but they give 100%. So I still have that connection with grassroots football as well as the professional game.
There's a lot of ex-pros, haven't they, who came out the game early through injury, play Northern Counties. We have Phil Marsh, who joins us quite regular, ex-Manchester United. He talks about still loving the game. In fact, we were talking a couple of weeks ago, weren't we, guys, about how football has changed from grassroots level to Premier League level. And even when you were refereeing in the Premier League, Kieth, when you had, you were watching the likes of Vinnie Jones a bit earlier, but Vinnie Jones tackling Roy Keane and that proper football as we've seen it, and it's all changed. Yeah. So, yes, Kieth, let me give you a warm welcome to our channel and MUFC RealistTV. You'll find that the guys in the comments are hugely knowledgeable about the game and are more interested in your views on how refereeing has changed, modernism in football, and pretty much your overall opinion of the game today. So I'm going to kick off with the hottest topic that myself, Jarvis, and Mick, when we're talking to the guys in our VAR room, we can't always square handball. We try. No. We've read the rules. We just don't understand it. And I was wondering whether or not you could give us your expert opinion on handball. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the De Ligt handball against Liverpool. White was given. And then I believe the day after there was an incident at Wolves that wasn't given. I think it was Semedo got away with it. And I was just wondering if you could kind of explain to us and to the viewers handball in its essence, and where actually the casual fan doesn't understand it.
Well, I'm just the casual ex-referee that doesn't understand it as well. Putting it blunt, the IFAB, the International Football Association Board, are the governors, if you like, of the laws of the game. They actually meet regularly, discuss, and introduce changes. And what they've done is they've overcomplicated a number of law changes, amendments, growth. I've got a Laws of the Game 1936 in my drawer that somebody, the artist Paul Trevelyan, you might know, sent me this some years ago. And it's got a 2-line on handball. And all it states basically is it's the hand and it has to be deliberate. And it emphasizes the word deliberate. Now, what these guys sat around the table have discussed is trying to make life easier for referees, and have done exactly the opposite. what they failed to do is they talk about, first of all, we used to always call it handball. We knew that part of the arm was part of the hand. We knew that in terms of interpretation. So the first thing is that they say, right, the hand and arm up to the underside of the armpit is the offending part of the hand and arm offence. I think that's pretty simple. You think. So when the ball hits the shoulder, it's not handball. Then we talk about the silhouette of the player and making the body shape larger. Here comes a problem. Because what they've forgotten is they've forgotten the body mechanics and the movement of the player. It's easy to draw something on a piece of paper than it is to actually determine the shape and body movement of a player. The mechanics of a player is when you move your body left or right, your arms act as a balance.
Yeah.
So that becomes an important facet of ought to be the judgment. But what the law says, if the silhouette is made bigger by the player and the ball strikes, then you face the consequences. What again shows some of the problems is the distance between when the ball is kicked and when it hits the player. Sometimes we're getting handballs when there's no way the player that's been accused of handling the ball can get his hand or arm out of the way. And so I think that when we actually start to look, we get if the hand and arm is out, say 30 degrees from the body, and it strikes, and there's distance between 10 yards, you're going to get handball offence given.
Right.
Sadly, you're getting handball offences that even I disagree with. And I'm going, no, the player cannot do anything about that. And of course, the very nature is that one of the difficulties we face in the modern game, and particularly in the last few years under the management of Mike Riley at the PGMOL, is a drop in standards of officiating. Let's be quite clear. We've got referees who are in position in the Premier League that didn't ought to be there. And I can say
we agree with that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, when I took the job on years ago, I said that I would be the 21st manager in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm Arteta, manager of your club, and I've got a player who doesn't give me 100%, right? He's dropped from the game. He's not in the team. So if he makes a big error and say the centre forward, your number 9 is not hitting the back of the net, then he searches for another number 9 who might be better.
Yeah.
Now in refereeing, I operated that. I operated the view. If the referee made a major error, right, he wouldn't have a game the following week. He wouldn't have a game because I wanted him to know that I didn't accept errors that were contributing to the outcome of the game.
Yeah.
Now, so there was accountability.
Yeah.
And I want you to know that accountability went to the point where I actually removed referees from the list. So make it clear, it might seem harsh, but if you want the very best, as the man in charge and the guy who's offering the leadership and management to the organisation, then they had to meet standards that were acceptable within the game. And having been a referee for 23 years at the elite level of the game, Football League, Premier League, FIFA, I think I had a reasonable idea of what was right and wrong. So what we have at the moment is we've got, and the difficulty of handball is it stems to the fact that we've got an inconsistent approach where one referee in one game will give handball and a referee in another game will not give it.
Yes.
So the way to deal with that is to get all the referees in a room, show hundreds of video clips until they've got the message. This guy's is handball, and this is not handball.
Yeah.
This is a foul. This is not a foul. But then the other thing that I introduced was I would then go to the managers at the beginning of the season with a special meeting, and I'd show those video clips, not all 100, but I'd show them and say, our interpretation on this is handball. So that managers and referees going into clubs and talking to players and the media all understood what an offence was or what an offence wasn't. So handball, as a law at this moment, is introducing problems to the referee that he doesn't require.
No, 100%. And that's always a huge topic for us on both our shows on MUFC RealistTV. Yeah, it is.
The thing is, what you're trying to do in producing a law is to take out some of the subjectivity in it in order to get an accurate interpretation. The less subjectivity, the more accurate you'll get a decision.
Yeah.
But because, you know, often I'm told that because a lot of referees have never played the game, they don't understand the game. But the way, you know, it's a little bit like saying these players who play the game don't understand the laws. What has got to happen is through education, you improve both houses.
Yeah.
You know, if you go to yesterday's game with Delors, who's received a fairly cheap yellow card, and this is another aspect, you know, referees are not effectively using the yellow cards in the manner in which they should be used. And look, I've had conversations with the late Ken Aston, who was the former referee who invented the red and yellow cards. You know, that came about because of the 1966 World Cup. They couldn't get a player off, an Argentinian player ratting. He didn't speak English. He wouldn't go off. And some weeks afterwards, Ken Aston, at a set of traffic lights, suddenly realised red and yellow. But you know, what that has done is it's reduced the management impact of dialogue between a player and a referee. All we see now is the referee swinging into his pocket and producing it like confetti.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, the sort of thing. I go to a player, and you talk Vinnie Jones, you can talk Norman Hunter, Maradona, Best. I've refereed all these players, but the reality is, the crowd might think you're going in threatening. I would often say to a player, I want an improvement. Nothing else. I want an improvement. And they look at me and go, "What? I want an improvement." Because referees will go in and say, the next time you're going to get a yellow, next time has to give a yellow because he's committed himself. He's left closed the door on his options. Yeah. So to get back to handball, I think it's pretty simple when a player jumps up and he's got his hands up in the air and the ball strikes, he's going to get penalised. I think where the difficulty comes is when, as a natural, a defender, when he bows down slightly, when he's got an attacker facing him, his hands will go not vertically down his side, they'll be slightly out. And that's when the ball strikes and he's getting penalised. When that, in a sense, is a natural position. So my view is, I would want the IFAB to instruct its referees to say, we want to see a fair amount of air between the arm and the body, and it really extended out, not just close in.
Yeah.
I mean, getting players to put their hands behind the back is unnatural.
It is, yeah.
Therefore, the law's got to be daft when a player's reaction is, I'm going to put my hands behind my back, because if it strikes me hand and arm, it might be a penalty kick. And of course, that's what happens on occasion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Jarvis, we've got an example we can run on that maybe Keith can comment on.
I was trying to find the. Sorry, Stu. I was trying to find the image of the Leeds handball against Liverpool, but unfortunately I couldn't find anything. I only can find a still picture, but I don't know if that helps. But to sum it up, he turns his body and his arms is straight up, and I think that's why they give the penalty because.
But it was Jarvis, the ball was
a natural movement when you turn really fast because of
and this is exactly the point I'm making. The lawmakers have not taken into account the body mechanics in relation to handball and the use of the hand and arm as a balancing mechanism. So in that particular case, even though we see it as natural in the movement, because the arm is out and the ball strikes, he's going to get penalised. We can't defend. We're not going to defend the position of the movement because, in a way, referees are not encouraged to do that under the laws of the game. That's the point I'm making.
No, good point. Go on, Mick.
We all played the game here. So when I played the game, it was at least accidental or deliberate. It was a handball, right? But things have changed with the modern game, in my opinion. Like if you look at in isolation the Ligt incident, it was like a pinball ricochet basically, and what is he supposed to do? Chop off his arm. But the problem is what I have there, Keith, is that the referee Michael Oliver let it slide, let it go. And he got influenced by the VAR to tell him to have a look at the incident. But he deemed it as an accidental in the first incident. And what is the purpose of VAR is the clear and obvious, isn't it? Right?
Yes.
So in a way, like mechanical, what he's supposed to do, the ball was so fast, and the second incident, what I would look at would have that ball influenced to be a goal or a goal opportunity. No, it wasn't. You know what I mean? And that's what was so shocking for me, that Michael Oliver let it go and that he got influenced by his buddies in the VR room and a peer pressure to say, go have a look at it. Go have a look at it. You know what I mean? And as soon as that happens, I mean, back in the days when you used to referee, you used to get the calls 98% correct. So the difference between the VR decisions and the manual refereeing is not that big. It's like 1% difference. Would you agree?
If we touch on VAR, I think that you're quite right. That I've watched referees this weekend, and the referee in your particular game, the Arsenal Man United game, I've watched him, and he has an over-reliance on VAR. And there's a few referees that now have got so used to VAR, they've stopped refereeing. I say that loosely. And I've said on one or two occasions, who's refereeing this football match? Referee or VAR? So it gets down to this clear and obvious. I think a lot of the problems that we're facing with the VAR in England is because of a lack of leadership coming out of the PGMOL, initially with Mike Riley and now with Howard Webb, in order to get the VAR operators to understand what is clear and obvious. Because Michael Oliver is our number one referee, allegedly. He's certainly in the top two because we've only got 2 elite referees in Europe. Therefore, he's in the top 2. So as a consequence, if Michael Oliver is judging that as not a handball, then there should be no reason why the VAR should come in. Now, that's not to say that Michael Oliver makes errors, but the problem is we're trying to re-referee every incident.
Yeah.
And the consequence is that we've got the whole structure of VAR operation in England is poor. And the reason it's poor is for this reason. One, you can have Michael Oliver refereeing, say at Anfield, on a Friday night. He leaves the ground at midnight. He then has to find his way somehow to Middlesex because he's VAR on the game at 12:30 kickoff. Now, that happens. And so you can have VAR, the referees the game on a Saturday, is VAR on a Sunday. No way should that happen. Absolutely no way. If you're doing your job as a match official, let me tell you, you don't leave the game at the end of the match. You probably leave the game round about Monday. It lives with you because you're not looking at the good decisions you made. There's an imbalance in your thought process. And that imbalance is more about, did I get this one right? Was it wrong? If it was wrong, how did I get it wrong? And I can tell you, I've been on the train, I've been driving the car, thinking about the game that I had on the Saturday, Monday heading for work, right? Visualizing every point about that incident to ensure that next time I don't make the same incident, get it wrong. Now, the process of a referee is quite simple. You see, you recognize, you think, and you act. That's what you're doing. That is actually what you do. So you see, you think, you recognize, and you act. Now, that process about seeing is about being in the right position at the right time with the correct viewing angle. And sometimes the speed of the referee, the speed of the players, the speed of the referee not being good enough, the players cover the incident. So when VAR was coming into the game, I was lecturing in Portugal and other countries saying it's going to be the best thing since sliced bread. Because I visualized specialists, VAR trained, who are capable of looking at video clips, analyzing them very quickly, which is different to refereeing, and looking at several clips of the same incident and making the right call within a matter of a few seconds. Looking not just at one screen, but at 3 screens. Now, what we've got is, I think we've still got an overindulgent group of VAR operators. You're right about peer pressure, because it would be unusual in the case of Oliver and the young VAR operator, but the reverse then is more prevalent. And that is, at times, I've seen Oliver being the VAR operator not coming in. Not actually as VAR operator when he should come in, just forgetting it. He's seeing that as a bit of a blast. He's not got the same levels of concentration. I'm almost saying he's uninterested, which has probably been a bit rude in terms of him. But I just think that the VAR system in itself is not good enough. And when we look at the offside decisions, right? I'm telling you, the system's not good enough that we're operating.
Yeah.
And I can say that because I introduced goal line technology. I work with Orkai as the boss of PGOML. I know that to get that accuracy that was required, the criteria that I put on Orkai, as they said, was much stronger than in rugby or in tennis, because I didn't want a dialogue. I wanted just a signal that says it's a goal. But to get that within milliseconds, we use 7 cameras around each goal mouth operating at 500 frames per second. Currently, we were promised the semi-automated system, which is better than what they've got now. That's not in place because instead of buying the system off the shelf that UEFA and FIFA use with Sony cameras and an Adidas ball, they've got a problem because they use the Nike ball. So the Nike ball doesn't have chips in like the Adidas ball does. And of course, that's made them go to look at Apple cameras rather than Sony. I mean, I'm aware of that because of my connections in the past. But, you know, we're a year on and we promised the semi-automated system. It's not in. I'm sorry, I'm digressing.
No. This is really interesting. This is the guys that we have in our chat. Jarvis, we must say hello to them. I'll give you the floor for a split second. Say hello to the guys in the chat, and then Keith,
if you don't mind, I will follow up. What he said earlier on over refereeing, because I'm very curious. If you don't mind, because for me it sounds like it's a small group of individuals that are overprotecting each other in a way to not making the mistake. They're so afraid of making a mistake, in my opinion. For me, a successful referee is not being noticed at all on the pitch. And that's when you know the ref has done a good job, right? But nowadays, for me, in the modern game, looks like they want to be in the limelight. They want to take away their fame. So you see a lot of robbery. Like in yesterday's game on social media, they say the best player on the pitch for Arsenal was the referee. And that was kind of a little bit of joke aside. But, that's poor for me because a referee should never stand out to be in the limelight. It should be always in the background, as you said, referee, see, watch, think, and make the correct decision. So for me, it sounds like the PGMOL is going towards the wrong direction, because referee for me should be always trust your instinct and what you've been educated. But when you running around the pitch and relying on 4 different bodies sitting there in a booth somewhere and telling you what to do, that is not refereeing, in my opinion. When they're stepping in and intervening, your original decision.
I mean, what we have in football is a microscopic view of the game through social media and through media as a whole. When in my early career as a professional, semi-professional referee, there'd be 3 cameras. There are 22 cameras at the game now, minimum. And of course, angles that can be shown that's not afforded to the referee. I think we need to be very clear, and I can say it very sincerely, that the integrity of the match official is not in question. The ability is the thing that's in question. I put in place lots of things in terms of the integrity aspect. And I took a greater care of how referees were selected, how they were trained, and how they were appointed to games. Let me tell you, in my era, we would, as a Sheffield-based referee, you wouldn't be refereeing teams in Sheffield. And I think I refereed Leeds United twice in a 23-year career. So things have changed. You have effectively Anthony Taylor, who lives in Altrincham, or that part of the world, which is about 12 miles. You can walk to Old Trafford.
You can.
On Main Road. But in fairness to him, when that appointment's made, that puts a lot of pressure on him. The integrity is they're not allowed to gamble on football worldwide. And that is something that I put in their contracts. The other thing that I put in their contracts was the fact that I could actually interrogate their bank balance. The other thing was that I owned their phones. I owned their laptops. They couldn't use another mobile phone. So I put in defensive mechanisms, not because I didn't trust them, because I'd seen other parts of Europe, Heuser an East German referee put in jail for corruption.
I remember that.
So I banned referees from gambling on football worldwide. So now what we go is we go to the game as a whole. So what you want is a degree of consistency across 20 referees. And that consistency is gained through viewing videos, examining in detail the referee's performance. I used to use Prozone. And I can tell you, I went to Radlett one day to meet Arsene Wenger and sat across the table. He said to me, what you need, Mr. Hackett, is Prozone. And I said, I've got it. I think he was surprised because I got Prozone referee. And I can remember spending a few minutes, more than a few minutes, examining the game between Bolton Wanderers and Arsenal. And I think he was shocked with the amount of detail that I could go into in terms of the referee's performance. Distance from ball, speed profile as the game's progressing, video playing at the same time as I could interrogate offside decisions, flow paths, decision-making accuracy, all those aspects. So I'm quite clear that I put in a foundation that has been replicated on the MLS by Pro Referee, which I helped set up. So when we come to the English setup, there are frankly some referees in that particular group who are not worthy of that position. That's full stop. And if you're a manager of a football team and you're in the Premier League, the last thing you want is relegation, because if that team is relegated, you lose your job. So I'm the boss of the referees, and I'm saying exactly the same. If the referees aren't performing and performing well, right, then they're not in the team. But you've then got to stand in front of them, and like handball, you look at handball and you then start to determine through video clips, right, through numerous video clips, what is it handball and what is not handball. And you do that through that learning mechanism. That is in a room, discussion, agreement, come out, and we all agree that's handball or it's not. And then what we say is, if you don't carry out that process, then you can be, you might lose your game next week. And people would say that's putting too much pressure on them. I don't think it is.
No.
I think you have to be right and you have to get these things right. But the foundation is, are you putting 11.5K in terms of distance covered? Is your average distance from ball around 10 yards, 11 yards? What's your decision-making accuracy? One of the problems I see that you probably don't, and that is the differential between what is a careless challenge, which is a free kick, what is a reckless challenge, and what is one that endangers the safety of an opponent. So let's go to that Delors red card.
Yes.
He's received a yellow. So he's on a yellow, right? And it's a daft yellow. Would I have given that first yellow card? No. The reality is, I know it's a big match. I'm prepared. And I want a calm referee on it. I want an experienced match official on this game. Now, I'm talking from experience because a lot of you'll not know, I was in the middle at Old Trafford when there was a 21-man brawl between Manchester United and Arsenal. I had to sort it. I stood there in the middle of that, right? There I am, in the middle of it. Now, I'm facing, this is my honesty. I'm asking myself, which one of these players do I send off? 1, 2, 5, 7. because I want to be fair to everybody. And so as a consequence, my answer was, I'm going to live with what I've seen. I don't like it. I'm not sending anybody off. I'm still in control of this match. This is a 16-second outburst. Carry on. What I will do is issue a report at the end of the game and let others look at it with me and talk through it, of which the decision outcome was, of course, point deducted.
Yeah. I see, Winterburn. I was just saying, Keith, I see Winterburn's in his usual position there. He probably started it, and he always used to...
When we looked at it at the FA offices or in a hotel, McClare was also guilty of a kick as well.
Was he?
So there was clearly something. Yeah, there was something going on. But ultimately, at the end of the day, from that, we developed a process in the future. We saw a bit of that come into play. But on the Delo challenge, right?
Yeah.
Would I have given that first yellow card? No. Would I have recognised that this is a game with tension? Yes. Do I want to keep my cards in my pocket as long as possible? Because I want to avoid reds, right? And I was asked earlier today how many red cards I'd given. And somebody about 2 years ago informed me that 23 years of refereeing in the Premier League, I gave 10 red cards in the English Premier League and Football League. I wasn't the guy who issued red cards. I managed effectively, hopefully, the teams. So he's given a yellow. The manager now has got an option, because does he know his player? And I think sometimes I look and I scream at managers and think, get him off. Look at his behaviour, get him off. And of course, then what happens is he comes in with a reckless challenge. There's no question. He's coming, he's off the floor, right? He's hovering towards a red card, but in fairness, because he's on a yellow, he's going to get a second yellow and he's off. I have no question about that particular incident, because
I think we've got a clip of that, Keith. Actually,
I have a clip of this, so we can have a look. This is from the overview. You can see the whole situation, and I have some close-ups afterwards, so we can have a look at this first. So he misplaces his touch a little bit too long, and then comes in with the tackle.
So Jarvis, if you go back to the very beginning, Keith, if you look at where Madley is right there, you're in that position. He's in a decent position there, isn't he? When you see Dallo make that initial first touch, what runs through your mind?
Well, the thing that you start to do at that particular point is you're actually looking to squeeze play. So he should now be running towards it, because he knows he's got a potential hazard coming up. And of course, now what he's got is he's effectively got the movement, and there's because the distance is involved, there's going to be speed. Right. So what he's done now is he's gone down early. And it doesn't matter whether you're in contact with the ground. Once you've committed, it's a little bit like a car crash. Once it's rolling the car, if the brakes don't work, you can't put a stop on it. Once that player has gone for that challenge, he can't stop. So he's clearly reckless.
As a referee.
And that's why in the modern game, right? In the modern game, he's going to get a yellow card for that.
Are you anticipating that, Keith? You know, when you see Dallo do that touch, are you thinking, oh, Christ, I can see what's coming together? As you watch it unfold, you're thinking, what am I going to do here?
Well, what you do is you have to anticipate, and you improve your performance as a referee, because during the week, you're using visualization on various challenges that you've experienced in order to try and get a view.
Yeah.
The dynamics of a referee is, in my era, we were endurance because the game was almost on pace, right? It then started changing. When you had someone like Thierry Henry, who could run for 20, 30 meters at 7 meters per second, right? So I changed the whole fabric of referee training. First of all, we brought in the pre-match warm-up, which became which is now adopted around the world. So we introduced that through my sports science because we needed to hit the ground running. Because sometimes our referees were missing out and taking about 5 minutes physically to warm up and about 3 minutes mentally to warm up. They were missing things. So in this situation, we changed the dynamic into explosive sprinting. I brought a sprint coach in, and we might run 3 meters, 5 meters. We changed the sprints in our game, moved from 25 average towards the players' sprints at 50 per game.
Jesus Christ.
So the dynamic has changed. So what that means is, in this situation, that referee should be moving in order to get the ideal viewing angle of what is taking place. That's his movement.
So he was quite static, wasn't he? Really, he didn't move toward the play. Right. Okay.
Correct.
But in a way, you see, it's like a car crash, like two cars going against each other. Who blinks first? Who will deviate? So basically, if you play the game, you know what's coming, right? And for me, it was never a yellow because both players are going for the ball. Now, if it wasn't a reckless, he didn't go with the stud, so he was basically sliding. You see that? He was going for the ball.
But your interpretation, therefore, in the modern game, forgive me, in refereeing parlance, he is out of control. Because he's sliding on the ground, he can't stop, he can't change direction. Now, we then, the next stage up, of course, is endangering the safety of an opponent. And so here, within a red card situation, we're looking at malice as part of that makeup. But one of the things that professional players seem to have difficulty with, and coaches need to deal with it, and that is when a player launches himself off the ground 1 foot or 2 foot forward, then he cannot control the landing zone or the change of direction. He's automatically getting, at that point, he's reckless, right? We look at excessive force. Well, elevation off the ground is through excessive force, and he's endangered the safety of an opponent. Now, in the terms of reckless, it's one step down, but because this player has gone to ground with a foot up, he's reckless, and that's how referees will interpret the situation.
Yeah, I can see that. So, just a very quick one on this, because I think it's really important that the guys in the chat understand this, and us as players, really. I'd love to know. So, if you go back to the original image, please, Jarvis. Sorry, after you show.
Okay, I thought we were going to look at the close-ups, but we can do the original first. Okay.
Yeah, what I'd like to know, Keith, is when you're doing the debrief with him, say Monday morning or Tuesday, whenever it is, where should he have been? Jarvis has got him circled now. Where should he have been? Where should have Madley been? Should he have been between Agarto and Mainu? Or
he should have been coming out of centre field, right? Yeah. Heading towards that challenge. And there's two reasons for that. There's obviously the first, to get the ideal viewing angle, right? And the second point is, if there's confrontation, position, right, gives a degree of clarity in terms of them being able to manage any conflict. So the reality is, position sells decisions, and if he's closer to the game, then there's a greater acceptance that if he's going to give a red, to give a red.
Yes, that was kind of what I was getting at. If he's closer, he can see it, can't he?
So this whole question is, what viewing angle has he got? Has he got the ideal viewing angle? Now, when we look at the video clips that you've just shown, the stills or the videos, close up, then that's the point where you start to discuss, as we're trying to do, how reckless is this? And does this fulfill the criteria as a group of referees in terms of recklessness? Right?
Yes.
Right?
He's going for the ball.
So Madley, where he was too far to see. Yeah.
Here's the misnomer, right? I can remember a few years ago, Cristiano Ronaldo sent off for a reckless challenge that endangered the safety of an opponent. He didn't even hit the opponent. There was no contact, right?
Intent.
In this case, right, we're looking at the recklessness of this challenge, not the outcome. You're looking at the outcome.
You didn't even hit him.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you hit him or not.
You're looking at the control elements.
Yeah. So this is where you get the detail of examining with the referees that they're all interpreting it in the same way.
Yes.
It does, the other side, let me tell you about the side that referees don't often talk about. And that is, I used to say to my referees, and this is something that a lot of people didn't like. And that I would say to my referees, if you're giving a second yellow, I want that yellow to be orange.
Yeah, I get that.
Right? So what the argument then in the discussion that could be when you're examining that, is that an orange? Is that challenge an orange? And so, again, this is part of what you're trying to get into the thinking of the referee and what you want to try and communicate to managers and players, when, as the boss of the PGMOL, I used to go and meet Ferguson and Benitez and Wenger and whoever was manager of teams to try to discuss our interpretation as a group of referees on what was a foul and what was not a foul. My education of this referee, as I say to a lot of referees at the Premier League level, or did, don't go hunting for problems. Don't create your problems. And they're creating the problems because of those cheap yellow cards that they're giving. Yeah.
Well, I text Jarvis actually during the game, Keith, and I said we were going to lose. We were going to lose a play. It was inevitable, wasn't it? Just before we move on, Jarvis, do you want to say a quick hello to the guys in the? And then I've got another question for Keith.
Yeah. The chat room is boiling. There's 300 people watching at the moment. So thank you guys for turning up when we have a special guest. I see Craig Warby, Luan France, Diana Hughes, Jack Reacher, Trevor Wade coming in with a lot of interesting questions. Whistler, J United, and all of you guys, you know who you are. I'm always supporting the channel. So I'm grateful that you are here supporting us in this moment. But I just want to say to you guys, I see a lot of good, interesting questions, and we will come to them in the Q&A session at the end of the show. We will try to do the interview part first, and then we will open up the panel for everybody to come in with questions. So don't be afraid. We have saved your questions, and we'll come to them later.
We have
the interesting bit. The interesting bit here is that I saw someone every challenge is not a yellow, and that's perfectly right. That's the point I'm trying to make. I think that there are in my era, I started off. When boss of the PGMOL, our average yellow cards were around about 5 per game. And I suggested that was too much. and our average then for the next few years was 3. In my final year, we had 38 red cards. Several of those were double yellows. For the same number of games in Serie A, 145 players have been sent off. And in Spain, 165 players have been sent off. And I got calls to go to Germany and talk to their referees about more proactive and effective management. And I think that is what you're trying to achieve here. And that is warning.
Yeah.
A word of advice. If you're in proximity, believe me, I used to shout a lot. And shouting used to get you out of those problems, you know.
Yeah.
And if you saw, you know, the likes of players getting a bit hot under the collar, then in that sense, you try and quieten them down.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to move on to the Maguire, obviously, incident from
Liverpool.
But the question I've got, and I'm quite interested by this. You spoke about when you were head of the PGOML, what you put into place to protect referees, actually, and make their job a bit easier. Where's the chasm been created then that makes modern day referees weak-willed? You know, I know there is no Wenger anymore. There's no Fergie anymore. There's no Benitez. There's no Moyes. You know, there's no real strong, what we would call character managers that you had to deal with on a daily basis. You know, you told me once before, Keith, that you'd have a phone call off Ferguson if he thought you got an offside wrong or whatever. That doesn't happen. Is that a big problem for modern day referees?
Well, I think that what you're trying to do is, as the boss, you're taking some of the hits, but you're also using those hits as a form of education opportunity. You know, I mean, I give you an example. I think I've given you an example before of Fellaini joined from Belgium, Everton Football Club, and Moyes was the manager. And in 10 games, he had 10 yellow cards. And David Moyes wasn't happy, and we had a phone call, and eventually I went across armed with the 10 yellow cards in film format, and we had a matrix on a big screen, and we were ready to go. And before we started, I went, right, number 8 and number 7, let's discard them. And David Moyes said, why? And I go, there weren't yellow cards. We were wrong. Yeah. Now let's get into looking. And we were able to see that Fellaini, the Belgian, was caught out on many occasions because of the pace of the Premier League from the league that he'd come from. And he was standing about a metre away and holding on to an opponent, and invariably getting a yellow card for stopping a promising attack. And so when I was able to explain, look, every time he does that, he's going to get a yellow card because that's the law interpretation, and I can't drift away from that. Then Moyes changed the format of how that particular player played. So there are areas where you can have that discussion. You know, I can remember when Wenger kicked a bottle in about with 2 minutes to go. He gets sent off, and I rang him. I was on holiday in Salcombe, and I rang him, and I think he was a bit surprised that I rang him and said, "Look, I apologise because that could have been dealt with much more effectively, and I do believe it could have done. It could have done." So I think it is about building relationships, building trust, and recognising that managers can actually improve the standard of refereeing, not through criticism, but through honest views. You know, I mean, I use Prozone because Sam Allardyce was manager of Bolton. I was going there to argue that he was wrong on an offside, and he showed me Prozone, and then all of a sudden I learned that Manchester United have got it, Arsenal have got it, Everton have got it, and I'm going to have it. And it took me a long time to convince Prozone to be able to have the same system. And then I spent a lot of time with them developing that. So
amazing.
You know, you asked me about the chasm.
Yeah.
You know, football's a disease. For me, I caught it when I was a youngster, and it lives with you. And I'm passionate about the game, all levels. As a consequence, you never stop learning. And so what I think, when I decided I was going to retire, the Premier League offered me a role as their ambassador, and I went to various countries around the world. So I didn't exactly retire, but I worked for the Premier League then as their referee ambassador. But I knew instantly the guy who was appointed in my place was the wrong guy.
That was Mike Riley, wasn't it?
You mention it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
He was look, I coached him, and he was a difficult guy to coach.
Okay.
And I'll never forget, and it was Arsenal's number 3, wasn't it? Or yeah, I think it was, when he called him to him. I can't remember the player's name. He called him to him and he didn't come. And he called him again and he didn't come.
Yeah.
And I said, you should have shown him the red card.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have asked him to come to you. You should go. And I always instill, this is not about, small things in referee. If you're standing facing a player and you say, come to me, that player has every right not to come.
Yeah.
Now, if you're doing that, then, and you want to join the player and you want to talk to the player, you pull him away and you say, right, come and join me on neutral ground. So it's a triangle form of management. Just come to one side. I just want to isolate you. I want to have a quiet word. Can you improve your behavior? You're getting in my eye. I don't want to be doing things that you're forcing me to do. I think there's lots of debate and discussion around that. Mike Riley, accountant by profession, a numbers guy. I never rated him as a referee, if I'm honest, and that really then became a bit of a worry. And I stepped away from it, and within a matter of weeks, all the coaching team that had been there, the likes of Paul Durkin, Roger Dilks, who've been, good referees on the Premier League, very experienced, but also trained as coaches. He suddenly dumped them all. And therefore, he wanted that straight line communication between himself and the referee. Now, any good manager of a football team will tell you he's got a number of coaches and he's got a number of difficult players, and sometimes he'll not address it. He'll give the coaching staff the opportunity to take the heat out of the situation and deal with it. Sure. That's what I used to do. That's what I used to do. And therefore, he lost all that experience and never recovered.
I agree. I think under Riley, I've got to say this, under Webb now, that the emergence of the referee, it became about them as well. I step on the pitch, same as the players. And I think Riley enabled that. I think he embellished that such a lot. Whereas, look, I'm an old school guy, Keith. You know me. I'm 55 now, pal. We've spoken plenty of times about the old school. That's what I really like talking about. And I've seen you have some great games. You've dealt with the fiercest managers, and today, referees, it is all about them. Michael Oliver steps onto the field. He's earning, I don't know what they get now, 100 grand a year or whatever. When they were getting peanuts, weren't they? When you were refereeing to an extent, peanuts.
Let me tell you a story.
Well,
I'll tell you. I'll just embellish that to give you a proper story. I mean, I can remember I was a sales and marketing director of Henderson Doors, based in Romford in Essex. And I'd helped to take that company from a 3 million turnover to over 100 million. So I was quite a successful sales director. I was appointed to referee New Zealand versus Australia. And because I refereed that particular game, I lost my job.
I remember you telling me that,
Then the second bit was I was appointed to referee Stuttgart versus Feyenoord in a top European game, and my boss said, you can have the day off, a couple of days, but you've got to be back for the board meeting. The only way I could get back was to charter my own aircraft at $2,000. Let me remind you that I didn't get a match fee when I was an international referee.
Wow. Yeah.
You just got your expenses. So when you look at my career, and look, these are the eras. This is why I worked hard to convince Sir Dave Richards, who was then the boss of the Premier, the chairman of the Premier League, to go introduce professional refereeing. Philip Don was the first boss, and then I became the next boss. I was development manager to begin with because I didn't want to live in London. Simple. I wasn't going to pay a London mortgage at that particular age. So those elements stay with you. So when I left years ago, the budget was 5 million, i.e., we were spending 5 million on referees. That figure today, if you look at Companies House, the turnover is 33 million.
Gee, wow.
So there's no shortfall in terms of the financial opportunity to put in and have the very best referees. At the moment, we've got too many passengers.
Well, we would agree.
We look, I've got colleagues who have almost disowned me now because I say it as it is. I want the very best refereeing standards. We used to lead the world. When I ran the line for Jack Taylor, Pat Partridge, George Courtney and the like, they were regarded as world class. And when I left, I believed, and Europe believed, UEFA certainly, that we had up to 10 world class referees in that particular group. We still had problems. We still made mistakes, but not as many mistakes as we see now. And when a few weeks ago, Howard Webb, who I coached and know well, came on and said, so far VAR is going all right. We've only made 2 mistakes. I nearly fell off the chair.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
You know, and I've seen 3 today in 1 game.
Well, talking of mistakes,
there really is no accountability, is there? Because we see a referee make mistakes on a Saturday, and he's refereeing in midweek.
Yeah,
and earning money. I don't want to be the hatchet man in terms of that. I just want the referees to understand the implications of when they make an error. Now let's get back to the Delors situation. Would I, as a referee, send him off? No.
Yes.
But that's the difference. That's the difference between when I refereed and when we're refereeing now. Because sometimes the law changes that have been made make it more difficult. But then I look at the other thing, because I know we're going to get into this controversial penalty kick.
Well, we've got it teed up. We've got it teed up. So let's, Jarvis, you tee it up.
Let's have a look at it.
I think you, and then we can look. That's what I wanted to talk about next. Yeah.
Give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to find
it. Sorry, pal.
Yeah.
I'll put you on the
I apologize. The point I want to make before we see it is this. Each week, we're seeing grappling getting worse. We are seeing holding, pulling, pushing, blocking in the penalty area at corner kicks and free kicks that are going to enter into the penalty area. It's rugby. It's not football.
No.
Now, referees have allowed that to happen. And they're in a corner. They can't get out of it. And what comes from that is players, whoever they are, whatever team they're playing for, grabbing hold of their opponent, holding them forcibly, getting away with it.
Yeah.
And then when you get this challenge, the Havertz situation, and the referee gives a penalty kick, it surprises everybody.
Yes.
Because
we have
they've seen it all allowed at corner kicks, but now they're going to award a penalty kick.
Yeah.
Or not.
So here we have it. Yeah. Maybe you could talk us through what you think about this.
So we can play it down in the 125 speed and do it all over again. So,
yeah. So, is there enough, Keith, with Maguire? Because me and Jaris were talking about it last night, and I said, yeah, he put his arm out, but it was more of a token. I didn't see him pulling his shirt. I didn't see any real strength in Maguire's arm on Havertz. Also, would you have taken into account Martinez as well? Pretty much able to clear the ball. I mean, me and Jarvis came down on the side of a no pen last night, didn't we, pal?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
we also concluded that if VAR checked it, if the referee gave the penalty, they would probably stick with it. But I don't know. What's your thoughts, Keith, on that?
Well, I said very clearly that I didn't see this as a penalty kick for the reasons explained. Again, the problem. This is the problem in the modern game. And this stemmed from when I was in charge, because Sam Allardyce at Bolton, right, on one occasion, I think it was Kevin Davis, went to ground and he didn't get a penalty kick. No, the opposite. He stayed on his feet, didn't get a penalty kick. And Allardyce then at that particular point said, well, if my players get contact in the penalty area, they're going down. And I think we see this all too often, that when a player feels contact, or manufactures contact, which is the other, trailing leg as a hook, goes to ground. My view is, right, I'm not giving them. And therefore, on this particular one, I didn't see it as a penalty kick. And I wasn't going to give it. But, you look at the position of the defender, you look at the arm. I think we can all say there isn't sufficient strength. But on another day, on another occasion, you'll get a referee in the Premier League giving it. And this is where the problem is.
Yeah. Yeah, we agree.
Now, I mean, what amazes me is this.
Keith, just want to interrupt you 1 second. A good example of this would be the Højlund-Rodri situation when Manchester United played City. I don't know if you remember that. When Højlund held out his arm and Rodri just fell down.
Correct.
Almost the same level of force when he hold his arm as this.
This is the problem that modern referees face. And this is why, the greatest referee that we've ever seen is Collina, Pierluigi Collina.
Yeah, I think we'd all agree.
Now,
the best legend.
The thing that Collina did was he spent a lot of time before every game analysing the two teams that he was going to referee, and he never went into a game unprepared. He was always prepared. I learned a lot from that. Now, if you are prepared, for example, in my era, you'd have a quiet word with Vinnie Jones, and Dennis Wise. You might have the odd word with Martin Keown. You knew that Ian Wright occasionally got upset. When you went to Wimbledon, everybody talked about Wise and Vinnie Jones. The reality was the guy who was the murderer was Laurie Sanchez.
Yeah, I know.
And in the same way that when you went to Leeds United, everybody talked about Norman Hunter, but the guy who was the hatchet man, and Billy Bremner, the hatchet man was Johnny Giles.
Johnny Giles.
Come in, do them, move away. So
Giles.
what I feel is this. I'd be running alongside Havertz, and on the first one, I'd be saying, "You got a 7 out of 10 for that one, son. You're missing the water. Don't con me. Don't try and con me. You know, you're going to ground too often." And I might even say that before I've gone out. So I'm walking and I'm in the tunnel. I go, "Oh, there's a lot of water on the field, so you can go down where you like." I mean, look, the game needs to have a little bit more humanity in it and a bit more fun. And okay, it's serious. Look, I'll never get away from the fact it's serious. You want the decisions right, but I think you've got to build relationships up between players and referees. You know, and
100%.
Look, Michael Oliver last year before was my number one referee. Is Michael Oliver my number one referee at the moment? No. Why? He's prancing around, not putting in the required physical effort that I know he can put in. He's lauding a bit. And you know, you have to then say, right, okay, Michael, I've got a game for you. It's Gillingham versus Exeter City. That'll do you good, won't
we
it?
agree with that. Yeah, we kind of, in fact, that kind of question was asked last night because me and Jarvis felt that Madley was in the right position to see the play unfold, but we couldn't quite work out why he didn't see there was no scramble. So then that led to the penalty. It was saved. We all know that. Great save by the keeper. But then a melee occurs. And me and Jarvis text each other during the game because we know we're going to do a show after. So I'm on there going, "Oh, bollocks, we could be in real trouble here." Didn't I, Jarvis? And then so we spoke about it again last night. And so I'd love to, Jarvis has got it teed up again. So we'd love to know your initial thoughts and your thoughts 24 hours on in terms of where you feel if retrospective punishment could come the way we feel, particularly for regard.
Well, I think I'd be very surprised if Agati is not charged for the headbutt.
Right.
That's the first thing.
Yeah.
I think he does, but I think it's sufficient to have warranted action. I'm surprised, but not surprised that the referee's not seen it. He's doing what we say. He's actually monitoring. The one thing he's not doing, which he should be doing, and that's blasting on the whistle as loud and as fair as he could.
Yeah.
And I think that in itself is important. I'm still looking for his assistant referees because the format is clear that when you have a mass confrontation, the nearest assistant referee comes on and monitors, and then having settled near the technical area, if that's okay, then the next guy comes on.
Yeah.
So make no mistake, both clubs will be charged by the Football Association for failing to control the players.
Okay.
What is going to be interesting here is, and the fortunate bit is, this is a cup game.
Yes.
Not a league game.
Yes.
They have already set the precedent on a league game by deducting points. I don't think they can't go down that route because this is their competition, right? And they'll want to safeguard their competition.
Yes.
So there's always the process is quite clear. The referee will have issued a report. That's it. It'll go terms as an extraordinary incident. That's already with the FA. That is sent by electronic system, email or something, to the FA. So they've already got that. But what they're likely to do is they will write to both clubs asking for their observations, and they will write to or make contact with the referee and the two assistants to say, did you see anything untoward? They will be asked. Maybe if they saw the headbutt.
Yeah.
If their answer is they've seen it, then they'll question why didn't they act upon it. But it's more than likely that they will say they've not seen it. And if they've not seen it, then the FA are likely to re-referee the game, something that the game itself is reluctant to do.
Right. So, okay. Well, that's quite interesting.
You know, when I was boss, we had a series of mass confrontations, and Richard Scudamore, the then CEO, said, "I'm going to stop this. We will go with get on with the game, get on with the referee, get on with each other as a promotion, but we will also put in the fight that up to $250,000 on mass confrontation will be the fine." It never got there.
Sure.
But within that whole remit of trying to prevent these sort of scenarios, which are damaging to the image of the game, the club owner, the manager, the club captain signed in.
Right. Okay.
Keith, I have a question before you come in, Stu. When it comes to this situation specifically, when you see Ugarte and I think it's Havertz going head to head, players usually do that. You know, it's a way of like the feathers. You know, they are like making themselves big. So in that situation, I think they are both doing the same thing, and Havertz just drops down because he's a little bit quicker when he thinks.
Yeah.
But another thing what that happened was this right before that the situation, and you can see that here he clearly choking him or holding his neck.
Yeah.
And we saw this with Casemiro. He was banned. I think it was 3 games for violent conduct when we played
3 games.
Watford. Again, I think it was Hughes. He took his collar, but it looked like he was choking him. So, do you think Havertz will get a penalty for violent conduct when they see these images? And what will the penalty be? Are we talking 3 games or is it more?
I think first of all, I can never give you an answer on what the punishment's going to be. I'm not interested. I never have been. I think it's up to the referee on the day to do the job. So now what you've got is you've got the FA. The FA, if they see that image, and it's an image that's damaging to the game, they will ask the club for the observations, and then they will take a decision. I expect in this situation, where you've had these incidents, the FA to come and issue sanctions. A lot depends on who's sitting on the disciplinary panel, and there's inconsistency in how they approach these things. This is the other side of, if you like, the FA and how it handles disciplinary matters.
Yeah.
So I think they'll have this image because this image is on social media. I mean, I have to say, even last night, I didn't see that. So when I was viewing it for my column in the Daily Telegraph, but it was I think the mass confrontation will be certainly, both clubs will be fined, and then individual players watch this space.
Yeah, me and Jarvis concluded that last night. We're also quite surprised at his like you pointed out, his non-intervention. But we're also amazed that he took his eye off the ball to speak to Bruno. Now, we couldn't quite work that part out, could we, Jarvis? We were trying.
Bruno was like this.
Yeah, Bruno was like this. We didn't know if it was any codology from Bruno, but he actually distracted madly as to what was really going on, because Bruno's talking to him and the players are hitting the deck at that particular time, and he's talking to Bruno. And we were quite surprised about that. So I just wonder what you thought.
Equally, I was surprised as well. I mean, the last thing you want is a conversation. What if you're going to have a conversation, right, with a captain? Then the other captain's got to be called over, and you then consult with both captains. look,
You see the situation with Bruno.
I thought at this particular point, and I think this referee's done reasonably well this season. But I have to tell you, I thought he was exposed. It's a modern problem with our referees that they can't get angry or be seen to be angry. We all want to be nice and we all want to be calm in these situations. The reality is, you know, if this happens in a car park, you're going to do something about it, and you're going to be like separating and doing various things. I mean, my view is he was inept in dealing with the situation. And I think that's one of the problems that I have with the referees. I mean, I look at the, you know, having worked with the likes of Graham Poll, you liked him or you loved him, he was a bit Marmite, Jeff Winter, you know, George Courtney I worked with, Mark Halsey. They would have been in. They would have made their thoughts known to the players involved. That they may not have got the answer for that particular situation immediately, but they didn't want it to escalate and be a fire further down the line. You know, and I just felt that it was. I thought it was a 4 out of 10 performance. With a referee.
I thought he did I thought he had a decent first half. He was fairly controlled, but in the second half, that's where he started losing his control. I mean, if that was Colina, which is my favorite referee in all time, you mentioned him before, he would have had control and he would say, "No nonsense, boys, not on my watch." He would be like, you know, because whenever I used to watch Colina, I used to go like, "Oh, this guy's scary," you know what I mean? But I think,
What you say when you're coaching referees as an insight is that I want you to think about a kettle on the heat. The very best games that I've refereed, it's like bubbling. The bubbles are coming up slowly to the surface, and you know you've got a game. You know that that extra effort's required, that extra concentration. What you're also aware of is it's not going to go to steam and bubble furiously. And the act of a referee in controlling a game is about controlling the temperature of what's going off in front and having the ability to turn it down. The way you turn it down is to actually almost metaphorically putting your foot on the ball. You slow things down. You become a bit of a pain. You're saying, look, hold it there. You know, instead of saying the ball is like within a couple of yards of where you want it to be, it's a free kick, you start saying, I want it on the spot. And they go, what the hell are you on about, ref? And you go, when you start behaving, I'll become more liberal in my approach. But until you start behaving, I'm going to be firm. We're not going to have the game that we all want. So behave.
Yeah, it's like being the conductor. It's like being the conductor, like, you know, slow it down.
That's exactly what you are as a referee. You are the conductor. And you set the beat of the game. The players, of course, influence that. But in the modern game, you have such wonderful skill sets. You want a little bit of temperature, but you also want the skill to come out. But you also have to recognize, you know, these guys are professional. They don't have to go to work like I used to have to, and you know, get up at 6 a.m. to compensate for the afternoon or part afternoon you've had off to go to a midweek game. These guys are at it full time, so that they should be prepared and understand and have the experience to deal with situations like this. Now, Webb has. The current boss, Howard Webb, has those skill sets. I assure you. Yeah. Is he directly in contact with those referees, passing his skill sets on? I fear not at the moment. I think he's trying to be a politician when, in fact, let's get the delivery of refereeing performances improved, and let's not have us shaking our head when we're saying, has the referee lost it?
Yeah, totally agree. Keith, believe it or not, we are an hour and a half into the stream. It's been absolutely brilliant. I was going to quickly check with Jarvis. Have you got any more clips you want to play, or should we run to the Q&A?
I think we're good. I think we need to go to the Q&A session so we can go through some questions.
And my old mate Jarvis doesn't know about this. We're going to do something different, Keith. I always do the Q&A, but tonight, my old mate has been quite quiet tonight, and I love him to bits. So I'm going to hand over the reins to my old mate for the Q&A. But before I do, there's been over 300 people watching, Keith. You've made a lot of friends. There's a lot of fans in the chat chiming for you to be chairman of the PGMOL again. You've been a great guest. You really have. There's questions coming in thick and fast. We'd love for you to come back on. Please come back on, because we'd love to hear some stories about you and Fergie. I've got loads of other questions about refereeing and how you prepare for a match day and things of that nature that the guys would love to know, and how you prepare for the likes of Jones versus Keane, that type of thing. We all want to know those. But old mate Jarvis, we've got a little jingle. It's not a Kieth Hackett jingle, but we got a jingle for it, Jarvis.
I can do the reggae jingle, maybe.
Do a reggae jingle. We got a little jingle for the Q&A, and then Jarvis. I love that. I love that. Jarvis, it's over to you, pal. Over to you.
Yes, there's a lot of good questions here from you guys in the VAR room in the comment section. We don't have time to go through them all, but I'll try to pick the ones that I find interesting. And we have one here from a good old friend, Treble Wade, comes in with a question. Would Keith love to be a referee in today's game with VAR and all the other laws that have been brought in since his retirement?
I'd love to referee. I loved it and was always sad when I knew that my time was up. The reality is, I think that I'm for technology. I introduced communication kits to refereeing. I introduced Prozone as a sports analysis of performance, and of course goal line technology. I just feel that referees need some balance and they need some technology to assist them. VAR at the moment is not doing its job, and one of the reasons behind that is quite simple. I believe that football should adopt the same as rugby: big screen in the stadium. The referee can and the fans can listen in to what is going off, and we have a specialist panel of VAR operators. And by the way, I'd include one or two ex-players in that panel of VAR operators.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that brilliant question, Trevor Wade. I think we have one here from my fellow Norwegian, Jarle Malmin, coming in and say, you guys keep finding the best guests. I got a question for Mr. Keith. What is his thoughts about refs being in charge of teams they do not like? And I think he's mentioning
that's a good question.
We all heard.
Yeah, it is. For me, I don't think I had a team that I disliked. I had teams that I knew were going to be difficult, but for me, they were a challenge. In my day, everybody looked at Wimbledon, and they were a team that were difficult to referee because things went off all around the pitch. But they were 100%. And therefore, for me, I knew I'd got a game on my hands, and that was a challenge. The privilege of refereeing at the elite level, you have the best seat in the stand, in the ground. I mean, you're on, I can remember running alongside Maradona. Yeah, he was playing in a friendly game, but I still ran alongside him. I can remember Paolo Rossi. And you know, there's hundreds and one sort of players that I've liked. You know, on the back of my wall here, I've got Niskins and, you know, all those sort of players that had great skill sets. My job was to protect the skillful players from the hooligans. And that was the challenge.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, good answer there, Keith.
The hand of God, Maradona. That's a handball.
Yep, absolutely handball.
That was a handball, but that was a Tunisian referee, wasn't it? Who had that England Argentina in 86.
And that was his last game. He was sent home, but that's the nature of the accountability that used to run. When I was an active referee, you know, if you had a bad game, a football league game before the Premier League, and you had a bad game, you found yourself not refereeing the following week. I think ultimately at the end of the day, you've got 10 Premier Leagues each weekend. What you've got to do is, if you've got 10 top-class referees, then they're on every week. Yeah. And the one that falls out of bed is not. You don't have Michael Oliver, fourth official one week, referee one week, VAR one week. You say, right, okay, if you're our number one referee, you're getting a game every week until you mess up.
I agree.
You know?
Yeah. Yala, brilliant question.
Thank you, Yala. We have one here coming in from Nas M187. He comes in and say, not sure if this has been asked, but with the Premier League being the wealthiest league, why haven't they introduced the semi-assisted VAR for offsides? The 2002 World Cup did it, and the Serie A does it. Maybe, I know you're retired, but I know you have some insight, at least, when it comes to...
Well, I think that the reality is this. I think one of the difficulties is that the Adidas ball, the UEFA and World Cup use the Adidas ball. The Adidas ball's got the chip inside and the sensors for the semi-automated system. The Premier League has the Nike ball.
Yeah,
that's the first thing. Now, I know, because I know people within Sony, they're not going for the off-the-shelf system that's available. They're developing their own. And they're using Apple cameras, and that's for sure, because I know they're not using Sony in their development. So I think they've got themselves in the corner. They said at the beginning of the season that by November, the semi-automated system would be in position. It's not.
I remember that.
They failed. And they failed because they're trying to develop something themselves when they need to buy something off the shelf and get an arrangement between Nike and Adidas in terms of the chip system in the ball. But that's a negotiation that ought to be happening now. Yeah. You know, I watched the other day, and I was watching the game on television, so I knew what was going off. Inside the stadium, all they've got is the VARs checking for an offside. The reality was, he was waiting for the information. The VAR operator was sat there waiting in front of him for the lines and various other things. In a world where we have the wealthiest league and we have the best players generally, we need to have the best referees and we need to have the semi-automated offside system for sure.
Yeah, no, totally.
You know? And I think that's down to, I mean, the first thing was that the Premier League itself said it didn't want it.
Well, you see,
as the head of refereeing at the time, way back, they didn't want goal line technology. But when I went in and spoke to Scudamore and others, we had goal line technology. It's up to the boss of the PGMOL to actually say what he wants.
That is great information. Just before you ask the next question, Jaris, we've had this come through. I don't know whether you can corroborate it or not.
Ooh.
I don't know.
No. I know Alfredo. I know Alfredo personally, but
Yeah, maybe you can have a look into that or something. Sorry, Jarvis, I just thought it was worth mentioning.
That's okay. Yeah. I have a good question here from my good old friend Rashmano, the chief moderator on Tactical Devils, and he has also a transfer page on Twitter called Transfers MUFC. So guys, check it out. He comes in with a beautiful question. They say, Keith, in your time officiating, who was the most mouthy player as a player? Which player tried?
Well,
tried
I'm gonna give you two. I'm gonna give you two.
Great question.
The first one is Brian Horton, who played for Luton Town.
Luton Town, the bearded bloke,
and became a manager.
And
the other was Brian Robson.
Brian Robson
was a moaner. I'll tell you a quick story because the other one is George Jordan, and George Jordan and Gordon McQueen had joined Manchester United from Leeds United.
Shocking.
Both of them were regular attenders at a nightclub in Leeds called Cinderella's Rockefellers. and my brother ran that particular nightclub. The owner and my brother then became owner-directors of Stringfellows nightclub in London. So George Jordan, I hadn't refereed Leeds, so George Jordan moved to Manchester United. Manchester United was a regular club that I used to officiate. And George Jordan had this habit of catching the ball on his arms to control it. I'd seen that on many occasions, and I used to shout, "That's a foul, that's a foul." So now I'm refereeing and he does it. I'm blow, give the free kick. He comes racing towards me, very, very unhappy. A few expletives past my head, and I'm telling him to calm down, which he does. And I then leaned towards him and said, "You, Mr. Jordan, are banned from Stringfellows nightclub forthwith." And he looked at me He looked at me in complete disbelief, and I ran away. The game's continuing, and I could see a conversation between McQueen, who knew that I was Johnny Hackett's brother, and Joe Jordan, and for the rest of the game, not a peep out of both of them.
That's funny. That's a great story.
Those are the sort of things that you use when we were officiating.
Brilliant. That's great. That's a proper story, that, isn't it? Brilliant. Sorry, Jarvis. Yes.
Thank you, Roshmano. Thank you for that brilliant question. We have a question coming in from Kat. She says, "Seems to me that there's no accountability for refs. Why is that?"
Look, the first level of accountability is they've got 20 plus referees and they've got 10 Premier League games. So it's easy to apply accountability without the fans knowing. Because the accountability is you don't give them a game, they don't get a match fee. So it hits their pocket. But for me, at times it needs to be more than that. It needs, you need to say to somebody, look, as a responsible employer, when a member of the workforce doesn't perform, you have a duty of care towards that member of the workforce, and you offer him operational advice. Let me make it clear: it is a business, they are employees, and you have within the laws of this country, right, requirements to ensure that you're looking after your staff and you're dealing with them in a responsible manner. And part of that is to actually say, look, you're not refereeing next week. Why? Because there's a shortfall in performance. And you'd be checking, like you check the body weight, if the body mass changes and it gets too much, then you don't get games. In my time, Phil Dowd Phil Dowd was earning, when you look at Mike Dean, when I took Mike Dean onto the panel, he was earning £14,000 and I was giving him 50.
Yeah.
He was a chicken plucker. He was that. He pulled feathers out of chickens. He did that because he needed time to referee football, and it was a secondary role, right?
Yeah.
But then with Phil Dowd worked in the industry. He was on about 12 grand. He was suddenly earning 50, and instead of going to McDonald's occasionally for a meal, he was going to 4-star restaurants twice a week. So his body mass altered, and you say to that guy, once you stop eating, mate, you'll get a game. So these are the sort of human side of football, managing. Look, and out of which, let me make it clear, Phil Dowd was an outstanding manager referee. He would get excited and he would get annoyed and show it. That was a downside, because when he got annoyed, he was annoyed.
Yeah.
And we tried to take that out of him. Halsey was a talker, but he got on with everybody. But he refereed brilliantly. He was a top-class referee. Now, I say this. Look, why isn't he, as a younger guy than me, why isn't he involved in the PGMOL? Yeah. Why isn't he coaching the referees? Where's, you might not like Graham Paul, but where's Graham Paul? Paul Durkin, I had as a coach. Riley got rid of him. The element is, look, it's not Arteta that's running Arsenal, is it? No. It's the quality of his coaching staff. He makes the decisions, so he is running it. He's making the important decisions, but the strength of Arsenal is in that coaching squad. Who take the pressure off when Arteta's losing his confidence or cool and wanting to go at a player. Somebody's going to get that player, pull him to one side and help him, support him.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That was a great question. That wasn't it, Jarvis?
Question. Yes, it was a good one. I have a quick one. I know you touched about on this, but this comes in from this comes in from the Dino Hughes. He say, what does Keith think about having refs mic'd up?
Well, I don't have a problem. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think that when they are, first of all, they are mic'd up. Let me make that point. And when I was their boss, I could listen into their games and listen into what they say. Look, I think we've all seen that show that Howard Webb does with Michael Owen in terms of trying to run through situations. The one thing that comes across from me is complete confusion, because I'm telling you, as an active referee, I'd be saying to that VAR and saying to those linesmen, assistant referees, shut up, for Christ's sake. You say, because they are breaking the concentration of the referee, and it's far too much chatter and not enough fact. All he's got to do is penalty, review.
The end. Yeah, totally agree.
Red card, review.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I don't want the VAR preconditioning me when I go to the monitor. Oh, by the way, Michael, it's a red card, Michael. Make certain. I brought you to the monitor. Please make certain it's a red card. I'm sure you'll agree. Watch it now. It's a red card, isn't it, Michael? Michael, it's a red card. I mean, look, Michael Oliver doesn't need to be told if it's a red card or not. Let him just go and have a look at something that he's missed and then make the decision. Far too complicated.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Good question coming in here from Trevor Wade again. He said, question, if there was one game Keith would have wanted to referee, be it in the Premier League, Champions League, or international football, which one would it be and why?
I'd love to referee Real Madrid, Barcelona.
El Clásico.
And you know, there are a lot. There are, you know, Juve and AC Milan.
Oh yeah.
You know, I've refereed Brazil. I'd like to have, I mean, look, I had the pleasure of refereeing Italy. I used to write the Italian national team was always like a challenge. And so I'd like to referee. I'd like to, in any game, I enjoyed refereeing Italy. I can remember refereeing Italy, not their first team, in the I think it was the Olympic Games. Was it? Yeah. I think it was the Olympic Games when they lost 3-1 to Zambia. And that and the Zambian national team a few months later were all wiped out in a plane crash.
Oh,
but I remember the Italians.
I remember,
even though they'd lost, and everybody regarded them as poor losers, shaking the hands of those Zambian players. As though they were brothers. So I think there are many games. I selected my last game because the FA, the Football League and the Premier League didn't know I was retiring. They wanted me to carry on, but I decided I'd had enough, and I refereed Man United, Liverpool, and then came off. That was it.
Oh, what a brilliant game too! Would you have jokingly, as a bit of fun, tugged on Baggio's little ponytail? I think I would have. Come here, Baggio. Yeah, that'd have been great. Have we got any more questions, pal? Or are we?
Yes, I have one here from DJ Superfly. I have to warn you, Keith, it's a little bit edgy, but I think it's meant with a little bit of fun. He said, was he ever offered big money to throw a game in certain directions that he obviously turned down? I'm sure someone must have tried.
Ooh, interesting question.
A really interesting question. I was about to referee Anderlecht against Moscow. I'm trying to remember which team, but a Russian team. When I was in the foyer of an hotel, when a guy came up and made an offer. And I went immediately to the match delegate, the UEFA match delegate, and reported that individual. Right? And that became then an investigation, quite a big one. And so it happened once, and I was shocked, ushered the guy away, went straight to the UEFA delegate, who then took the appropriate action. And thereafter, there was quite a thorough investigation by UEFA.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow. That's a wonderful answer, Keith. Thank you.
We have here one question in here from Mick, actually. MUFC RealistTV. Maybe you can read it yourself, Mick.
Yeah.
You read it.
Okay, you say, Keith, how could we change the current referee and VAR standards? Would it be bringing in refs from the continental Europe who has no attachment to any English clubs as fans?
I think that, first of all, if we have the best league in the world, we should have the best referees. And therefore, my view is that we haven't got the best referees. I don't like saying that because I think that at the moment, Howard Webb's got a poison chalice. I think Mike Riley's length and tenure in office at the Premier League was too long. And I think he's created a gap in refereeing. I think there are one or two referees coming through, and I've seen a number of referees on the Football League who ought to be given the opportunity to referee at Premier League. So I do think we have got the referees, but they're not being given the opportunity. But I would be inclined at this moment in time to be saying to the Premier League, I think Lexitier, if that's the right pronounce, the French referee is an outstanding referee. I think there are a number of referees who I would say, look, catch a train or catch a plane, you're refereeing this particular game this week. When we actually look, if we've got the number of big games that we have in this country and the shortfall of quality referees, there's a problem. Yeah. And that problem's been there for more than 2 or 3 years. And I think, look, I'm going to say, and nobody likes it within football, within the authorities, that I'm saying it. But I'm telling them that they've got to do something about the officiating. They've got to get better officiating. And Howard Webb has got to start giving leadership and direction and accountability to the charges, because it's his head on the block, no one else's. The administrators will stay, and the people who are trying to put it right will be pushed aside.
There's a reason why I kind of posed the question, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of speculations, conspiracy theories. Are they corrupted? Are they getting paid? Are they fans of this club? Or they be, based on certain referees and certain VR decisions that's gone not them way. You know what I mean? So would there be a solution? I'm a solution-based person. I always look at improvements. How can we improve?
Yeah. Well, I think all those conspiracy theories and everything is wrong. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the reality is there are checks and balances that are very clearly in place and do work. I put in that referees could not gamble worldwide on football, and within a matter of 3 months of that being in place, right, a newspaper suggested that a referee had gambled on a football match. That referee was suspended for 3 months until we thoroughly investigated and found not guilty of that particular offence. We were satisfied that what he'd done was against his image that we owned, right? He'd done nothing wrong. He'd not gambled on football. He paid a 3-month suspension and got back into refereeing. That guy was Mike Dean. So there is accountability. Hopefully, stronger accountability is required. There are checks and balances. This is not about conspiracy or cheating. It's about competence. And if you said competence is the question that's in doubt, then I'm nodding my head in agreement. We're not getting a spread of good referees. We're not getting referees developed coming through. Look, Sam Borrett has hit the scene running. I've watched him a couple of times. I think he's refereed really well. He's obviously a referee for the future, and he's one that they need to not spoil. That's the thing. Don't spoil him. Let him referee. Let him have the freedom. He'll make the odd mistake, right, as he learns through experience. But he's a good referee.
Keith, I'm looking at it from the perspective that, we see the problem, we're staring at it right now. I'm always looking at how can we improve it. You've spoken about, mic'd up referees. Can we see something like in tennis, you get three challenges, I don't agree. Can we have a review, where the actual manager can go and review it?
I don't have a problem with changing the system to improve VAR and how it operates. The whole way it's been operated over here is less than competent, and I think in fairness to Howard Webb, he's trying to do something about it. We've got an ex-PRO, that is an American MLS referee, operating on the VAR panel at the moment. So I think he's trying to do it. It's more transparency. The Premier League don't understand that a fan sat inside the stadium or stood in the stadium, right, is not being counted in the process. And if you're not involved in the process, then your suspicions will arise. If you see the 1, 2, 3, 4 checklist that goes to the outcome, and they've checked through those systems to get to that decision, then fine. If you want a referee's call in the system, and let's have a referee who says, I'm happy with what I've given. Get lost. I'm not having a VAR review. And I just look. I think they just need to toughen up a bit. But you're right. I know where you're coming from. I mean, I read social media, and it's a worrying trend. That's why I talk about the big screens, the openness, transparency of the system, the ability, if need be, if they want to bring in overseas referees, bring them in. Anything to help the current situation.
But the outcome of actually having big screens and reffed up mics and stuff like that, referees, it's educational purpose. You don't have that confusion. You don't have. It's a clear and obvious. Like people will understand. Why.
I mean, I was driving my car yesterday, listening to the game, not watching it initially, and my PA came on, and she was spitting feathers, and she's saying, "I want you to know that this referee ain't got a clue what he's doing." She sat at Arsenal. She sat there in the stand. She's an Arsenal fan. She understands the game. 20 years around refereeing, and she's saying, "I don't know what he's doing." So I understand the passion. We don't want to lose the passion. What we've got to do is get improved performance out of the referees. And the only way you're going to do that is leadership, direction, accountability. And Howard Webb has got to deliver that. And if that says, I'm not going to go on that show on TV until I improve things.
Well, he certainly needs
to. Anyway, look, guys.
Yes, we've realised. Yes. Sorry, yes, we've just realised, Keith. Sorry, Jarvis, go ahead.
Yes, I was about to say I have one quick question from Rushmano, and this is which ref had their own name embossed on their booth in gold?
On there, sorry, ask me that again.
Which ref had their own names imprinted on their boots in gold?
Colina.
Yeah, Colina. Yeah.
Yes, it was Colina.
Look, I'm slightly disappointed. I'm slightly disappointed with Colina because I think he's becoming an administrator rather than a leader.
Yeah.
And I want him to be a leader. I want him to set the pace that he set. Because when I took over the PGMOL, I benchmarked our referees against him. I knew everything that he did. I've got presentations on his body language, the use of his eyes, the interaction between players, the physical contact that he had with players, sometimes pointing and digging into the chest, which I don't advise, but that was his style of referee. But he was a guy that was delivering 11.5K distance in a game average, that was moving at pace, that was doing 50 sprints, and all we did was benchmark, and I said, that's where we've got to be. We've got to be more towards his style of refereeing and ability, and that's where we took refereeing. Not there now.
Yeah.
Keith, you've been a brilliant guest, a good sport. We've been going on for 2 hours.
Thank you.
Since this is a Man United channel, I just want to end with asking you this question, because we have seen now Man United under Amorim for a handful of games, and it's been up and downs. Do you think the process? Do you think a manager like Amorim is the right man, and he can turn things around when it comes to Man United going forward?
I think that whatever manager is in, I think that the minimum that they should be allowed is a year to change things, because tactically, mentally, and all that goes. They've still got, haven't they? They've still got the anchor of Alex Ferguson. But I mean, I've had those confrontations with Sir Alex in the same way that I'd had similar confrontations with Wenger. I'll finish on a Wenger story, because he didn't want. you know, for a number of months, I'd been chatting to David Dean about me visiting Radlett to talk to Arsene Wenger about refereeing. And his answer was, I'm not interested in referee. I'm interested in football. I'm not a referee. And eventually I arrived at Radlett, sat in reception. I was bang on time, and I was a delay. Then there was a delay, and it got to 20-minute delay, then 30 minutes, and I'm getting apologies. And to which he then came up and said, look, I'm sure we can do it in 10 minutes, of which I then said, I'm off. Where? I'm off home. I've driven from Sheffield, where I live, to Radlett to have a chat. I had lunch with Arsene, and he suggested I should have Prozone, and I got this laptop out, and I ran through the game with him, and then he could see that what I was trying to achieve was to improve the standard of officiating, and I got a buy-in from him. You know, I can remember visiting Benitez at Anfield at their training ground, and having conversations away from football, but still getting the points over. So I think this is about a working relationship on the field of play that needs to improve. I think where managers are concerned, right, from day one, they're under pressure. But always remember this. The most I got for refereeing a football match was 35 quid. And when I left the PGMOL, there was no payoff or pension, just the fact that I could hang on to the laptop that I used at work, which was probably a few years old. When Mr. Amaran gets fired at whatever stage, he walks away with millions of pounds.
He does. Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely brilliant. Keith, you've been absolute diamond. Can we get you back on in a few weeks' time?
Absolutely.
Would you
Yeah, for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
great, because we've got loads of stuff we want to talk about. We really have. So thank you so much.
Take care.
I'll let you close off. Take care, Keith. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Goodbye. So that was the end of the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a great show, 2 hours and 2 minutes streaming. It's been constantly over 300 people watching on Tactical Devils, MUFC RealistTV, and on Twitter where we co-stream. So guys and girls, thank you. Remember before you go, smash the like and subscribe. And guys, if you haven't subscribed to Tactical Devils, my channel, go over there and give me a sub. So that will be great. And also on MUFC Realist TV. So guys,
we have 2,500 live constantly viewing, glued in. Fantastic conversation. Amazing.
It's been a great show, and a lot of good superlatives from the chat. I see you guys. You actually loved listening to Keith. I see here Dave 147 coming in. Great listen, guys. Craig Warby, great guest. Abs, big up everyone. Great show. So I hope you enjoyed it. We will try as good as we can to get Keith to come back on the show another time. I can't promise anything, but I think he had a good impression of Tactical Devils and MUFC Realist TV and you guys. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. If you like, it would be brilliant if you can leave a comment in the non-live section after the show and keep the discussion going. And on the points Keith had.
Yeah. And then any other questions, perhaps we could just email Keith and try and get some answers for you, but we'll try and get him on. Hopefully, we're not 100% sure yet, but we're looking like getting Phil back for next Monday.
Yes.
Phil Marsh. He was hoping to join us tonight, but he's had some personal news, so we couldn't make tonight. Phil, if you do watch this, just to let you know that everybody's thoughts are with you tonight, old friend. And we look forward to having you back on next time. So from me personally, great show. Loved having Keith. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you everybody who's watched this and supported us. But please go over to Tactical Devils. We need your subs. We really need your subs, and we can get guests like Keith on and hopefully some others. So thank you again, guys. It's been a brilliant show. I've been buzzing. What about you, Jarvis? I've been the Mick.
Same.
Yeah, me too.
A little bit starstruck, it's just kind of a celebrity in the footballing world.
The thing is, we're talking to a man who's just, ran alongside Diego Maradona, no problem. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant, on the same pitch as Roberto Baggio, some of the greatest footballers ever. And so we can get some loads of stories out of him. And so please get your questions in. And next time we get him on, I promise you we'll get.
I could sit here 4 more hours and listen to this. It's crack of dawn. You can see the sunrise coming up.
Oh no, Trevor Ray. Oh, it's beautiful. Trevor Ray. He's got me gone. I'm gone. He's in. I'm out. Just for you. By the way, DJ Superfly guy, I did post a comment. He was very appreciative of Keith's answer, a very honest answer, because it was a tough question.
Yes.
And I'm glad you asked it, Jarvis. A brilliant question. I'm glad you asked it. So just a big up to DJ Superfly guy. He was really
good question. Good question.
So thank you for that, guys.
Yes. So, guys, it's been a brilliant show. 2 hours, 6 minutes. See you next Monday, or we will be back. We have a game coming on Thursday, so we will do a match review match. And a match reaction. So Wednesday and Thursday it will be a show. So stay tuned on both channels, and we will see you on the next. Goodbye, everybody, and have a good night. Bye bye.